reading Matt Barrows in The Athletic that Nick Bosa has improved his diet, John. I thought his diet was already dialed, but apparently he has dialed it in even further. He used to eat Chipotle all day. When the bars closed, here's a little sneaky line that like kind of gets glossed over. When the bars closed in the wee hours, he and his crew hit McDonald's. His go-to order, a McGriddle. 550 calories of sausage, egg, American cheese, and gooey goodness. Here's what I would like to interject into that little sentence. I love that we're like, Chipotle, bad. Went to the bars till 2 a.m. Who knows what happened there? Then he went to McDonald's and had a McGriddle. Well, what about the 17 Tito's and vodka soda? Actually, that would be okay.
Well, see, that's very healthy. You know, is he drinking IPAs? Is he drinking Jack and sodas? Like, what is he consuming? If he's drinking Tito's and sodas, one, you know, this is not paid for. This line, you don't get hungover. I don't. But they're check the caloric intake. Not bad for you.
I just love that we just blame the McGriddle instead of the never had like a you know, I don't know.
beer bonged a 24-ounce fucking can of IPA.
So anyway, maybe he's on Troy Aikman's new beer, but now him and he can reach 10 inches past his toes. That's how flexible he is. When he sits on the ground with his legs straight out, he can reach 10 inches past his toes. John,
that is insane.
Most people can't reach 10 inches to their, like, within 10 inches of their
That's
toes.
crazy.
So here's this guy, and I think the thing that really stood out is how dialed in he is on exactly how quick he is. His split times, he says, are as good as they've ever been.
Yeah, he looks, I mean, you and I have been beating this drum for a while. We haven't been alone, but I'm just saying on this podcast and on this YouTube channel, subscribe, smash that like button, that he looks like a man on a mission. And we've seen it before years ago with Khalil Mack when he was the Defensive Player of the Year, and there are similar vibes out of here. Here's the one thing I will take away from reading this article and Albert Breer talking to the Bosas, being an Ohio State guy. And I underestimated this years ago in Joey. And maybe I just, because they're brothers, one thing Joey's mentioned is like Nick's a little more of a focused guy than Joey. And I actually think in a weird way, Nick has like raised Joey's game. We say this all the time in scouting. It's one of the questions that it's just you hammer home and you get asked about in draft meetings by your bosses about how much guys like football. I mean, truly means to them. And, you know, when you get to talk to like Justin Wilcox, to a coach, football is everything, right? Like Justin is known as just like very serious family and football. Like it's just Kyle, just like his family and football. Like it's on the pie chart. Even if your family is a massive part, football is the other massive part. There is no other pies, you know, like that's just the only part of the pie. Football, family. Some people add God in there, but like with coaches, they're all the same. It means everything to them. There's a small percentage of players, and I think the majority of the great ones, they have a similar pie chart. Like football means everything to them when they're playing. Like Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Aaron Donald. I feel like Nick Bosa is in that category, and I think Joey, I think the Chargers thought Joey was a lot like that when they drafted him 3rd overall, and you and me were going over the draft before. It was a little shocking in a draft with Jalen Ramsey, Ronnie Stanley at the time before the Bong picture came out right on the day of the draft. Laramie Tunsil was viewed as like a top 5 pick, and Joey went 3. And one thing that we all agree on the Bosa brothers is they were born to beat the shit out of everyone on an NFL football field, and you don't maintain that without being really good. An underrated part of like this draft, you know, Joey's been in the league 3 more years than like his career is a little longer than even sometimes I realize. Like 2016, and we're going into 2022. Like he's been in the league a little while.
Yeah.
And I just think these guys are kind of a scout stream. Obviously, you know, Ohio State blue chippers. I'm not acting like it was hard to figure out in terms of their talent. But to me, what makes them great players, what makes to me Nick is more talented than Joey. And that's saying something because Joey's like a consistent potential Pro Bowler and a guy, you know, battling for an all-pro spot, is that how dialed these guys are on like getting ready for the season. You said that quote about the gym being huge, just 2 of them. Obviously, it's a little unique, right? Like their dad being an NFL guy, being a pass rusher. It's like the family kind of job. But I don't think you can fake, and anyone listening to this that, you know, is a Warriors fan, obviously a lot of them you in Northern California, is like how much Steph and Clay love basketball. And even, I mean, Draymond now podcast or whatever, but clearly he loves basketball. Like basketball means a lot to him. Like Draymond tweets about basketball when he's not, like he watches it. And in football's a little different. Like, you don't have to watch like football all the time, but like they're always preparing for football. Like Clay is always a guy like, where's Clay? He's probably just shooting her on his boat. Like, it's not complicated. He's not doing 17. He doesn't have what's Steph doing. He's either playing basketball or playing golf. And I think the Bosas are in the weight room or playing football. And that's, I mean, especially Nick, isn't that what you feel pretty good about giving $120 million to? Because if he wins the defensive player of the year, like we knew his number was going to be big. It could be historic.
Yeah, it could. I mean, and as long as he's healthy, and I think part of the point of the Barrows story on The Athletic, which is really good, is like, Nick Bosa would have been fine just doing what he was always doing. Doing what he was always doing would be a Pro Bowl level player, right?
He could have had a 10-year career, on the Niners and made 5-6 Pro Bowls, and you would have been great.
Probably a like borderline all pro player every year, just kind of sticking to the script.
What last year looked like?
Yeah, I mean, he's better than last year. And one of the quotes in here was McGlinchey was like their first rep against each other. He realized, yep, Nick's faster, and the numbers back it up. This is what Barrows wrote. Before he was drafted, Bosa's 10-yard split was 1.55 seconds, a good time for a 266-pounder like him. This offseason, his splits were routinely below 1.55. And I love this quote. This is what an incredible quote. I don't think he's not trying to be funny here, right? My starts, if I'm not under 1.5 on my 10-yard starts, then my nervous system probably isn't on that day, said Bosa. I'm in the 1.4 range every time. So he talks about it like it's science, right? His body is science to him.
He's talking about football like Bryson DeChambeau talks about golf.
He really is. He's talking about his nervous system.
Well, that's why in the MMQB earlier this week, when Breer talked to Joey was kind of giving Nick a lot of credit for helping him raise his game. And basically, Joey was like, I'm a meathead. And I think that's always kind of been the knock. Joey, to me, one knock on him coming out of college. Zeke, too. Ironically, they went 3-4, but they were so fucking good. They were the two guys that like beat the shit out of Alabama. Yeah. Was they partied a lot. Now, it mentions here Nick's parties, but I'm talking party. Like party that makes you a little as a front office.
Mean like, hey, you party?
I'm talking like there were just some red flags about their party.
I follow.
I think Nick is a little more dialed than Joey was at the same stage. And I give Joey credit. He's been in LA now for a long time and no issues, right? He's no trouble. Zeke's the only guy that had any trouble of the Ohio State guys, of the elite crew. So, I mean, I think Nick might be a little different than his brother in terms of cerebral. Doesn't it feel that way? And I think part of it is Joey could get by a little bit more. This is like nerdy football. He's a more powerful guy. Nick's really, his game, his success, and his dominance is predicated more on speed. And look what he's talking about here. Like, yeah, he kind of knows. I think speed guys sometimes think about shit a little bit differently than like lift, shove. It just is what it is.
Yeah. And there's different types of, right? You can be a savant at one thing and not be able to, pass a written test on another subject. And I'm
not saying Nick is, he's a Harvard grad here.
No, but he is a savant when it comes to the thing that matters most to him. And I think there is a freedom in having a very narrow focus on a goal. When your dad played in the league, when your older brother accomplished it as quickly as he did, going to Ohio State and going to the league, I think it's like one advantage I think that sons or brothers of pro athletes have when they're trying to become a pro, or siblings, whatever, could be if your mom was a pro athlete, is that it's I think it's really easy to envision yourself achieving that dream and believing that all the work you put in is going to lead to you achieving that dream, because you see it right there. Like, yeah, my dad's a pro. Why can't I be a pro? Right. I think having that example in front of you is something that can really focus you, because when you believe that you're very close to accomplishing something, I think you work really hard at it. And clearly this guy has accomplished a lot and clearly believes he's very close to accomplishing more. And the Niners are the beneficiaries. But it feels like he's saying, I've reached a new level, which if he's reached a new level, what does that actually translate to on the field? Is that 20 sacks? Like, what does that really mean?
I think so. I think defensive player of the year. He'd be my pick for defensive player of the year.
Let's go to DraftKings.
I think, too, guy, that it just kind of hit me. one of the most remarkable. Now, they were both, obviously, Peyton's in the Hall of Fame. Eli probably ended up getting in. Two brothers that were both the number one picks and then became Hall of Famers and Super Bowl champions, have 4 Super Bowls. And Eli's, you could argue, are like more memorable than Peyton's in a weird way. Would you agree with there?
Yes. More because Peyton was a favorite for so long. Eli was
Yeah,
not.
and Peyton was a favorite in both his Super Bowl victories. Like Eli was a fucking 14-point underdog to the undefeated team. That's an incredible accomplishment. That has a decent chance to never be duplicated, right? 2 brothers,
their
number
dad
1
played in
picks,
the league.
Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Their dad played in the league. These two, when do you think we'll ever see 2 brothers be the first position players ever drafted in their draft? Like, obviously, non-quarterback.
Oh,
But like both, one went 2, one went 3, and the only reason they didn't go 1, specifically Nick, was because quarterbacks went ahead of them. So if it wasn't for 3 quarterbacks, these guys would have been the first player picked. That's pretty incredible when you think about it.
that
right?
is. That's really incredible. Yeah. I mean,
it never really hit me till now, but once you look at Joey's draft, that it was Wentz and Goff, or Goff and Wentz, whatever. And I remember Steve Keim said when they drafted Kyler, because remember they got a lot of heat, like, you lied to us. It's like, yeah, they lied to you guys. And he said the one thing that like I lost sleep over was like, we're passing on Nick Bosa, right? I mean, it's looking back, I think Nick in the scouting community was, viewed as pretty blue chip, right? I mean, those don't happen that often. Like, who was the first player drafted? And who was drafted? Aiden Hutchinson,
the D line, the Georgia guy.
Like, I wouldn't like Myles Garrett. I think if you just got everyone's take throughout the league, they'd be like, that's a blue chip prospect. I think Nick was in that level.
The irony is that the Watts both have Defensive Player of the Year's awards, and JJ went 11th and TJ went 30th.
Yeah.
Are the Bosas each going to win a Defensive Player of the Year award? It's going to be tough, right?
You'd say of the 4, TJ's is the most incredible career because, like most of the league, they show you what they thought of him, right? People did not view him.
That was the next year. That was the 17 draft.
Yeah. TJ went 30th?